All right, a very good morning to you. It's good to see you right here on your wall, 7 minutes past the hour. And here we are. And today on the show, we'll be talking about rabies. And if you grew up in shags, like me, we used to say T9, the T9 dogs. So I don't know if you guys know about that. But yes, we'll be trying to understand rabies. Because as we all know, they say that the dog is a man's best friend. However, it can also be a cause of death from rabies, and this follows a risky bite. So according to statistics, Africa accounts for 36.4% of the 59,000 rabies deaths in humans annually. And in Kenya, rabies is endemic and has been estimated to cause 2,000 deaths annually. So the big question is, what exactly is happening? Because on the show today, we will seek to understand why people are still losing their lives, the fact that there is an effective vaccine for more than a century, but people are still losing their lives. So the big question is, why should that be happening in this day and age? That is what we want to understand. So if you have any other question as far as rabies is concerned, if you have a dog at home, either as a pet or for security reasons, and you have a few concerns here and there, feel free to stick around until the end of the show and also ask your question. That is at NTV Kenya, both on Facebook and on Twitter. But if you want to call in live, our lines are officially opened, and we look forward to hear what you guys have to say as far as rabies is concerned. How much of it do you understand, and what are some of the myths that you've had as far as rabies is concerned? But to put the conversation to perspective, I am joined from my immediate left. This is left, yes. Dr. Athman Mwatondo, who's the head zoonotic diseases unit from the Ministry of Health. Good to have you this morning. Karibu sana. And then we also have Dr. Veronica Chuchu, who's the veterinary epidemiologist and infectious diseases. Big names, eh? Good to have you this morning as well. Karibu sana. And last but not least, we have Tahariri Sam, who's the council chairman, Kenya Veterinary Association and National Epidemiologist, Director of Veterinary Services. Let me tell you, these titles, eh? Good to have you as well. Karibu sana on the show. And Veronica, you're also a PhD fellow from Washington State University, as well as the University of Nairobi. So yes, perfect people to have this conversation. And let me just begin with you, Dr. Athman, right? So like we said, the dog, a man's best friend, but at the same time, it can be a cause of death, right? And we do not want to see that. We've heard about rabies, but we don't talk about it as often as, you know, some of these other infectious diseases as well. And the big question is why, number one, and then rabies is also considered as a zoonotic disease. So can we just start from the basics, get to understand what is it all about?
Yeah, thank you for having us here. So rabies is a zoonotic disease. I think a zoonotic disease is considered as a disease that spreads from animals to humans. Okay. So it spreads, it jumps, it's transmitted, depending on what you want to understand. But it moves from animals to humans. Yeah. So rabies is a good example because, as you started saying, you get rabies mostly from dogs when you're bitten by a dog. Yeah. But it's not the only zoonosis. There are many other zoonoses that are common in Kenya. Right. For example, brucellosis, anthrax, which are very common. Often we get zoonosis by either touching them, contacting maybe an infected animal, their products, that is maybe meat or milk, or consuming uncooked meat or poorly cooked meat, or unpasteurized or unboiled milk, so which is very common among pastoralists in this country. So that's how you get zoonosis. And rabies, we actually say, is the poster child of zoonosis, the perfect zoonosis, because literally you can see it moving from the dog, an infected dog, it bites a human, then the human gets the disease. So that's a very good description of a zoonosis. It's not talked about a lot because it's a neglected disease, the disease of the poor. Actually, and that when you are disease of the poor, you are often neglected. That's true. So that happens a lot. And it's an old disease. It's not a new disease. So people have moved on to newer, fancier diseases. Rabies is such an old disease. Actually, people are surprised that it still exists.
I mean, listen, I was one of those people because, again, growing up, we used to hear about it a lot. I don't know whether it's because we grew up in the village and we would talk about this, and then, you know, you're told, Tinaini Takuma, you know, one of the ways that we used to be scared, not walking in the dark. So
with progress, development, actually rabies recedes. That's what happens because people move to the cities.
Yeah.
The lifestyle in the city is more restrictive. Dogs are not walking around everywhere.
Yeah.
So that really prevents the disease, especially in the urban setup. But in the rural setup where people keep dogs for security, I think pets are only kept in the cities, but in the rural areas, you know, a lot of times for security. A few people keep them for hunting. Yeah, so rabies is still there. It's not so common. I mean, that's the reality. That's not a very common disease.
Yeah.
But it's still there, and it should not be there. It should not be killing people in this day and age.
Yeah.
Actually, for us, that's what we talk about. But it still does kills people.
Yeah.
And that the estimate you gave there, we estimate about 1,000 people die each year from rabies in this country.
All right.
Even though the estimates that we get from hospitals are much lower. Because it's such a complicated disease, it won't be easy for you to pick it up easily.
Okay. Yeah, and one of the cases or the reasons why this remains a burden is the fact that most healthcare workers are not able to diagnose it as early enough, which again is one of the things that we want to understand. So what are some of these classic symptoms that they should be aware of? But before I talk to you, Dr. Veronica, so Dr. Sam, very quickly, what is the burden exactly in the country? Because again, like we said, we don't talk about it as often, and yet people are still dying from the same, which should not be the case in this day and age.
So thank you so much again for having us. And the reason why you started by saying that globally the burden of the disease is quite huge, and we are saying we are estimating about 59,000 deaths, and you actually rightly put it that most of them are actually in Africa.
Yeah.
If you bring together Africa and Asia, the 60,000 actually, about 90% actually come from Africa and Asia. When you come to Kenya, we are estimating about over 1,000 deaths of human every year.
Yeah.
And this, again, as Athman mentioned, they are very grossly underestimated because if you look at the surveillance systems in the country, sometimes they underestimate because some of the areas do not have the reports, either because they are very remote or sometimes because the health workers are actually inadequate or actually they are not, some areas are not actually represented. By and large, you have mentioned rabies is actually endemic in Kenya. Endemic means there must be an animal that is actually acting as a reservoir and therefore maintaining this in the population. In other countries, wildlife, things like birds, raccoons, and such play a very big role in terms of maintaining that. But for us, the study have shown clearly that the dogs, or the domestic dogs, actually playing the most critical role because more than 98% of the human rabies cases are actually driven by the dogs, or actually from the canine and transmitted by domestic dogs. And that is why you realize our focus is largely going to be around the domestic dogs. So the domesticity varies based on the areas, because you also know the population of dogs is not also evenly distributed in the country. So we have areas where we have high population of dogs, others where we have few, and that is why we are saying even some of the challenges that are posed, especially when we even don't know the population of dogs, like the census always do not even give us an estimate of dog population. So I think going forward, those are some of the key,
that should be included as well.
The key focus areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I see that. So 90, what you said, 98.1%? 99, roughly 99%.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what about the 1%? Where do they come from? Because there are a lot of people who have, yes, dogs as pets, but they also have dogs for security purposes, but we also have cats. Now we are seeing people having lizards for pests, all those things, right? So where does the 1% then come from? All right, Dr. Veronica, and then I'll come back to you, Dr. Sam.
Yes, can come. You see, even in the cats that you're talking about, the virus is coming from the dogs.
Okay. So, so they get them from the dogs, and then.
So there's this misconception that wild animals have a significant impact on maintaining the rabies virus. of course, in the West, there are those stories that wild animals, they have the virus, but of course they have the variant, the rabies variant virus in the West.
Okay.
In Africa, the studies that we have conducted, we have seen that the virus circulating in the wild animals and in dogs is the same. So it is the virus that is coming from the dogs going to the wild animals. So even in the cats that we have, even in the donkeys, because you'll have donkeys getting rabies, it's coming from dogs. And again, to add to what they've said, why rabies is not as spoken about in Kenya, because the cases are highly underreported. Okay. So what happens when you're bitten by a rabid dog? Before you manifest clinical signs, it will take some time, but that will depend on where you're bitten, the viral load. The viral load is like the volume of the virus in the saliva of the biting dog.
All right.
So if you're bitten closer to the face, it is closer to the brain, so you show clinical signs sooner than someone who is bitten on the leg and the viral load is not as high. Okay. So suppose I go to the clinic 2 months later, showing clinical signs of rabies, and I cannot, as a person out there, I cannot relate that bite that I got 2 months ago with the sign that I'm showing now. So that would mean this case is a rabies case, but it will not be reported as a rabies case because there is no history of that dog bite. Okay. So I cannot relate my clinical signs now to that dog bite. Okay. And even at hospital level, the clinicians, if you don't give that history of bite, then they are not able to say that this is a rabies case. Then rabies also manifests in different ways. Okay. It can manifest as similar to meningitis, cerebral malaria. So clinician can tend to say this is a meningitis, this is a cerebral malaria, whereas it is a rabies case. So you see the number of cases being reported show there we have fewer cases. Well, in real sense, we have a number of cases that are not being reported.
All right. So then I think that brings us to the question of what are the classic symptoms, Dr. Athman, for rabies then? And even before we talk about the classic symptoms in humans, do the dogs, first of all, present the symptoms? Because again, I remember when we were young, we were told, you know, the tongue is out all the time, it's drilling all the time, then it could mean that, you know, it could be rabies. But yeah, what are some of those classic symptoms for rabies in dogs? And then we'll also talk about it in human. Because I was saying, you get the same symptoms.
It's true, actually. So rabies virus presents almost the same way in the two species, the humans and the dogs.
All right.
Of course, it starts in the dogs before it gets the human. I'm not a vet myself as a medical doctor, but I've known so much about this. So I think in dogs, mostly, we normally notice abnormal change in behavior in dogs. So generally, that's a big sign something is not right. Okay. If a dog is too friendly, all of a sudden, a dog should not be very friendly to people. If it's biting objects, inanimate objects, a rock, some piece of wood, that's not okay. If it's biting more than 1 or 2 people randomly without provocation, that's not okay. Okay. Yeah, so those are some of the things that, but by and large, any abnormal behavior in a dog, that's really suspicious. Should be cause for alarm. Yeah, it should actually be a cause for alarm. Okay. It may not be rabies, but it's that, for me, that's the bigger one than expecting classical signs. Yeah. Because that's, people are waiting for that one thing that says, this dog the community
said, listen, it could mimic some symptoms, meningitis or something like that.
For us, that is the biggest worry. Yeah. But in humans now, when you're bitten by a dog, so I think Dr. Chuchu here mentioned that it depends where you've been bitten. Because the virus moves through the nerve system to the brain, the spinal cord, and then to the brain. So depending on where the nerves have been bitten, the closer you are to the brain, the more likely to get the disease faster. Okay. But generally, most people get it between 2 to 3 months. So that means when nothing is done. If nothing is done, once you've been bitten by a dog that is rabid, then 2 to 3 months you are likely to come down with the disease. All right. So I think in those, the first symptoms normally is itch around the site of bite. So discomfort or itches around the site of bite. And then followed by really normal symptoms like flu, headache, fever, vomiting. Very non-specific. Okay. And then quickly that will follow loss of consciousness, basically abnormal mental status. So either dizziness, loss of consciousness. And quickly, all this happens within 7 to 10 days. And death will happen within 7 to 10 days.
Again, dependent on the site of the bite?
When the first symptom starts,
okay. Yes.
between 7 to 10 days,
One
somebody
would
will
die.
die. And you know, we don't have any cure for it.
For
so
rabies,
if you start the symptoms, and the same thing happens in dogs. Within 7 to 10 days, the dog will die if it had rabies. And in fact, that brings up that if the dog doesn't die within 7 to 10 days, then it tells you it was not rabies.
Okay.
Same with the human. If the human does not die within 7 to 10 days, that person does not have rabies, because it's clear that if you get the disease, this is the saddest part, that if you get the disease, you'll definitely
Unfortunately, there's something.
Yes, 100% mortality in our setup. I think world over, there are only about 15 cases that have survived from rabies.
Yeah.
And even those ones, they had received the rabies vaccine way before.
Prior. Okay.
Yes.
I see
yeah.
that.
So nobody who has never been vaccinated and got rabies survived.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. You know, initially they used to say you start barking like the dog. So Dr. Sam, very quickly before we go to break, on these symptoms, I think, and Dr. Athman said very well, if your dog starts behaving in a way that is not normal, then you should be concerned. Might not be rabies, but it also could be rabies. So again, so what are some of these things that we should be then on the lookout for? And being cognizant of the fact that we have different species of dogs, and especially those ones that are kept as pets. So there are ones that are more friendly. Dr. Ahmed says they should not be as friendly. So there are ones that are more friendly as compared to the others. So again, I'm torn.
I'm sure what Athman meant is that you need to have a baseline
of what your dog behaves
what
like.
The demeanor of your dog or temperament of your dog.
Okay.
And when you see a sudden change in demeanor, for instance, the dog is used to be somehow excited and all of a sudden it is very quiet, that you should be worried. Okay. When all of a sudden a dog that is usually not very aggressive becomes very aggressive, it's a sign of you to be worried. Okay. The sign in animals, especially in dogs, progresses in phases, goes to a very aggressive phase, and then progresses to paralysis. Right. Sometimes starts with the hind legs, and it starts walking and pulling the hind legs, and then progresses to a full body paralysis. And that is what progresses eventually to the death within the time that Athman mentioned, 7 to 10 days. Yeah. So that progression of signs is what should help you start getting worried about dealing with possible cases of rabies in this animal. Okay. One dog, which is rabid during the aggressive phase, could bite even 10 cows, or even goats, or even human beings. Yeah. These animals also become rabid. And what we have seen in a few cases, sometimes when maybe a cow becomes rabid, it also shows signs. Most of these signs, because the actual virus goes to the brain, they're actually nervous signs affecting the central nervous system. And that's why you hear they're being confused with things like meningitis, which also affects the brain. The brain, yeah. So whenever you see a cow, sometimes some farmers may see an animal behaving like it's choked. And what the common thing to do, try and put their hands inside and try to unchoke. Yeah. Only to realize there is nothing inside there. If you are unlucky to have any opening on your skin,
you also get infected.
You also get rabies from a cow. Yeah. And that is why you asked, what about the 1%? There are few cases where even a cow also starts becoming aggressive. Sometimes you might realize because it's feeling some uneasiness, head pressing on objects, and becomes restless. Because all those signs which can tell you there is something is not okay. I think it's always good to call your veterinary doctor so that it is examined. And wherever you want to assist internally and you are not sure, I think it's always good to actually have your own protective measures like wearing a PPE or a basic glove or something so that we minimize the exposure. Absolutely.
I mean, one of the things that we do is, first of all, try to watch out the symptoms, kwanza to wonder if it will go away with its own or not. And then if that doesn't happen, we take it upon ourselves, right? And like you're saying, God forbid you happen to have a cat, then you end up getting, you know, infected from the same. We need to go on a break. And Dr. Veronica, very quick, I don't know if you can do this in like a minute, because now I'm curious. So this virus must have come from somewhere. I know you're saying in Africa, mostly even the wild animals will get rabies from the dogs, right?
Yes.
So then where is this virus then coming from, that the dog gets it and then ends up infecting, you know, other people? Very quickly, this is just me thinking on top of my head, because it must have come from somewhere, right?
So the rabies is, the virus is in the dogs.
Okay.
So what happens, so we've said the incubation period before you develop clinical signs, so the rabies, the virus will be in you, even in the dog. Okay. So what happens, it will stay in the dog. Then the dog, after it has developed clinical sign, it's going to bite another dog. Okay. So when that other dog is bitten, see, the virus will stay in the dog for a few days, then after clinical sign, then it will show, it will bite another dog. So it is a transmission. So the dog is a transmitter. It keeps transmitting the virus. So that's why the virus is still with us. That's why we are saying, for us to eliminate rabies, we have to start with the dogs. We vaccinate the dogs, we eliminate the disease.
Stop it at the source. Yes, basically. All right, so let's take a break. But when we come back, we'd want to understand. So then, are there other instances where people or even the rabid dog might not show any signs? And how much of a danger then is that to both the other animals, including cows, like Dr. Sam said, and even human beings as well, but also focus a little bit on vaccination as well, because like we said, if you get vaccinated, then you know you reduce the chances of getting infected or even dying from the same. So of course we pick up the conversation from there. But again, if you have any other question, engage with us on our socials at NTV Kenya, both on Facebook and on Twitter. Or if you want to give us a call, our lines are officially open, and we look forward to hear what you have to say. But for now, let's take that break. See you shortly.
Benefits of ordering with Glovo. Glovo allows you to order anything you want at the comfort and convenience of your home. Craving fried chicken or pilau or pizza? Easy and simple. Order on Glovo today. Glovo, order anything, we deliver in minutes. With Glovo, you order anything unataka, and when you get it una celebrate because kukuchoma imefika, na wakati keki inafika ndio sherehe inaanza. Order Glovo, will deliver in minutes.
Show off your best skin with Nivea Nourishing Cocoa Body Lotion. Now with 5-in-1 Complete Care. The deeply nourishing formula prevents your skin from drying with precious cocoa butter and deep moisture for smooth and healthy looking skin. Step out in confidence with our most complete care from the world's #1 skincare brand.
Politics has become a career for people to just make a good living.
As much as we want to criticize the government, let's also look at the modalities the government is trying to work.
I always get very tired when the Kenya Kwanza and their apologists always say that we are criticizing them. You see, it is not criticism. In a vibrant democracy, there will always be political pluralism. There will always be voices of dissent, and there will always be voices of diversity.
Ukinipigia simu nikose kushika, jua niko busy, nitakupigia baadaye. Mambo ya kupiga simu yangu hadi izime, wacha hiyo. Mambo ya kupiga simu yangu hadi ishe moto, wacha. Missed call moja imetosha. Missed call moja imetosha unless mahali huko unanyongwa.
To get missed called as you skiza tune, dial *811 *926#.
Skiza, Nan Nation. Imagine 10 people you know and love. Imagine if any of them needed blood immediately. This is a reality. Every 10 minutes, 10 people in Kenya need blood. Be it a mother in a maternity ward, an accident case, a surgery, or even a lifelong medical condition. These people need your help. Why don't you be their hero? Your timely voluntary blood donations will ensure our blood banks never dry up. Save a life today. Donate blood regularly at a county blood donation satellite near you. Changia damu, okoa maisha. Be the lifeline.
If you're hungry for chapos, make it ajab. Easy. Kamatis and samos prepared just easy. No stress, no mess when you're kneading. Easy. Ajab is so soft, rolls out so easy. So quick to prepare ajab base so easy. Soft to the taste and touch, it's easy.
Enjoy cooking your favorite meals with ajab and freestyle your way to deliciousness. It's easy to knead, easy to roll, and quick to prepare. Ajab home baking flour, the flour that does more.
Own your dream home for as low as 1.98 million Kenya shillings in Vipingo Kilifi. SMS Vipingo to 22365 or call us today on 0740 400 215. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, welcome back. 33 minutes past the hour, and the conversation today on your world, just in case you're tuning in, is on rabies. And we are trying to understand, why are people still dying from rabies in this day and age, despite the fact that we have a vaccine that is 100 years old. All right, why are people still dying from this? I mean, what are some of the things that we can do, first of all, to prevent this infection? And that is rabies. And of course, like we said earlier on, it is considered a neglected tropical disease. We don't talk about it as often as possible, and we should be in any case, and especially when it comes to the signs and symptoms and what you need to do immediately after, you know, first of all, being bitten by a dog, because again, you don't know whether they're rabid or not if you don't see the symptoms. But that question about the symptoms, Dr. you talked about the symptoms in human beings, and one of the things that we see a lot is children. Right? Because again, for adults, you see, you can see a dog and maybe kick it. Please don't, but well, you know. Yeah. But then again, for children, and even aside from the children, do we have other people who are more at risk of getting rabies as compared to the others? And then, Dr. Veronica, I think we'll come back to you on the question of symptoms. Are there instances where people might not show symptoms necessarily, or even the rabid dog not show the symptoms? But Dr.
Yeah, so this disease disproportionately affects children. Okay. So more than 40% of the deaths from rabies are children below 14 years. Okay. And there are many reasons why children are at risk, because children have low perception of risk. When everybody is running, children may actually run to the dog. That's true. When a rabid dog is all over, children do not realize that this could be risky. Yeah. So that's one. Children are also weaker. They can't wrestle a dog, so they are easily beaten, and beaten even, I think the bites are severe in children, because an adult literally will have clothes on and fight it back, but for children they can't, so they get really severe bites. So it means the animal is digging deeper, sinking the virus into your flesh. So that's why children are affected the most. Children are also likely not to report, because often the parents will reprimand them. Oh, true. So children are likely not to report when they are beaten or scratched, because what we say is that rabies is not just through bites. You can get it through scratch, a leaks of an open wound or mucous membrane, like the eyes, the mouth. Yeah, so you can get it through, because it's the saliva of the dog or the animal that passes on the virus to you. So children are likely not to say if they've been beaten along the way from school, to the market when they are playing. So this is something that happens a lot. And therefore, even when you take the child to the hospital 3 months later, you actually, as a parent, clueless what could have happened to that child. So, and this brings a very interesting perspective, like city children. In the city, your children are in a gated community, so you know where they are. But over the holidays, they go to rural areas to visit your grandchildren. And they're all over the place. And sometimes parents do not even know what happens to the children while they're playing in the rural areas. So we've had cases like those ones, where a very well-to-do family finds out that their children was actually bitten by a dog while playing in the rural setup. And this is abnormal for them because in the city life, that doesn't happen. So children are actually much at risk. And therefore, I think educating children that dogs are friends, but dogs should not bite. So when you're bitten by a dog, you have to report. So it's a very tricky area to do because you know they will be reprimanded, but they must report because of the consequences. And that's why we have really worked hard to have school education programs because we know dogs in most rural households, I don't know about the city, but are literally owned by the children. Even when we do vaccination for dogs, you see children carrying their dogs to the vaccination centers. They literally can calm them down. They know them by name. So you see children really love dogs. And they are the most at risk in this case.
Okay, all right. So making them understand, yes, it's good to have them and take care of them and all those things, but also understand if this happens, and that is a bite happens. But also just, again, like you said, touching the dogs. We see children kissing the dogs sometimes. You can't control that. But just letting them know that this is not right, or have the dog's tongue all over their face. Okay, all right. Dr. Veronica, very quickly on the symptoms as well. Are there instances where, you know, you might not see any symptom at all?
Well, we say diseases don't read books. Okay. So there are those classical signs for rabies that we expect to see. But there are, again, those cases that might not show as classical signs that we expect to see. Like the hydrophobia so we said when the rabies virus has gotten to the brain, then the virus also affects the muscles around the throat. So you're not able to drink water. When you see water, you start urge of drinking water. It makes you, like, you become very aggressive. Then because you're not able to swallow, then you hypersalivate. So some of these clinical signs, you might not see them, but these signs of discomfort, headache, fever, you will have them. But you see, again, when a patient comes to the hospital, we need that clinical history that there was a case of dog bite. If then that is not there, then a clinician, it might be hard for a clinician to be able to say that this is a case of rabies. So what we need is to create awareness, and as my colleague here has said, especially in kids. Again, you see kids there, and you see looking at below 15, they are not as tall. So most of them are bitten on the face. And we said when you're closer to the brain, your clinical symptoms, they will manifest sooner. So they will show clinical signs. So we want to create awareness to children and parents that even if you're going to tell our kids that where were you playing with the dogs, again, you need to tell them when you're bitten or scratched by a dog, make sure that you report. Because even just a scratch is a way of exposure to rabies disease. And then reporting is one thing, because like you said, you could be bitten like 2 or 3 months ago, right? And then you end up showing the signs a little bit later. So then what do you do? Like, so then, yes, report, fine. And then after you report, what happens? Yes, Dr. Sam, what happens? Like after a child reports, or even an adult reports and said, I have been bitten by a dog. What should be the next thing that follows?
Allow me to start slightly behind the the bite. Because I like the emphasis about the children and the fact that wherever a child is bitten, some children are shorter than the dog. So sometimes they even be bitten in the head itself. So which means it's even a matter of hours here in the brain. One of the key things that we focus on is wherever there is these bites, we try to emphasize so much that the way you behave or the way you treat that bite becomes very important. And that is why we recommend that people use running water and soap if it is possible. And immediately after that, make sure that you do report that. The reason why we are emphasizing on the reporting is because many dogs, sometimes the bite can be provoked by children, meaning the children are playing and therefore they provoke a dog and the dog bites. Sometimes they may just be facing a fierce dog and it bites. And in the worst case scenario, they may be actually facing a rabid dog. So because you do not want to take chances, because we said if you are bitten by a rabid dog and the virus is introduced in your system, and you do not take precautions of washing with a lot of water and actually reporting, then you increase the chances of actually coming down with the signs. And we say once the sign sets in, you definitely have to die in the next 10 days. So for us, we are emphasizing that because it is within that period where we want people to be injected with immunoglobulin so that we can kill the virus within the site of the bite. And also, we can also start you on examination so that then we verify whether the dog was actually rabid that bit you or actually was not rabid. So that we can also do post-exposure prophylaxis so that we inject you with all the required doses, which I'm sure Athman will explain further, so that then we minimize the chances of people coming down with the disease after the bite.
All right, Dr. Athman, do you want to just take it from then? This is as far as like treatment. So I have reported, do I go to the hospital immediately or wait it out? Because we do that a lot, we wait it out.
This is very important because so the most important first aid after dog bite is at home.
Okay.
So washing the wound with running water. Actually, we say flushing, not even washing. Flushing the wound. Like you know an Arabian tap, the way it flushes, we want to do that. Because we want to mechanically remove the virus from the wound. This is a virus that is just staying there, buried inside there, waiting to get into the nerve system and get to the brain. So washing that wound, we say for 15 minutes. Using soap and water. Why? Because the virus cannot withstand soap or detergents, or we have iodine solution in the house when you apply there. Actually, there are verified reports that this alone could actually prevent you from getting rabies. Just washing the wound thoroughly with soap and water.
And water for 15 minutes.
Yes, but that's not enough. After that, now you have to go to the hospital, clinic, whatever it is that you can get this, so that you can get now the vaccine. So we get the vaccine. In Kenya now we give the 5 doses vaccine, where you get in day 0, that is the day of the bite, or the day you report to the hospital, they consider it day 0. And then there'll be day 3, day 7, day 14, day 21, and then day 28. Those are 8 doses. The world has moved on from the 5 doses now. People are moving to 4 doses and 3 doses. But as a country, we're still there. We're working towards moving to fewer doses. But what's important is getting this vaccine whenever you can get it. There are people who say, oh, I was bitten a week ago. No. You need to go to the facility. As long as you've not shown symptoms, go to the facility and get the vaccine.
But why not then have it included in the normal immunization, programs? Because like you said, children are more at risk. So why not introduce it with the others?
So now the whole aspect of neglect comes here. So since 2015, before 2015, this vaccine used to be part of the normal immunization. You would get it in any public hospital and often in most public private hospitals. But then the funding of this dried up, and therefore for a long time, hospitals have had to buy the vaccine so that they can actually, and it's very expensive. I think it costs about 1,500 per dose. So 5 doses, that's 7,500, that's 7,000. So most households in this country can't afford that dosage. They have to sell something, chicken or something, they have to buy to get doses of that. So that actually has been a big hindrance for actually eliminating rabies in humans. Thankfully, so the Global Alliance for Vaccine Initiative this year now committed to actually now bringing vaccines to countries that need it, including Kenya. So I think from next year we will have vaccines for humans, so that every time somebody is bitten and reports to a hospital, most likely public hospitals, there'll be vaccines that they can be given.
I was expecting you to say thankfully next year we'll have this included in the normal vaccine programs, but
Yes, actually when now the Global Alliance is the one that subsidizes vaccines for everything else, polio. So when it comes, actually goes through the normal program, the system. system.
Okay.
Yes, but of course, much as it's coming, the challenges of accessing the vaccine. Yeah, you have to. This is a time-bound kind of vaccination. It's an emergency vaccination, actually.
Okay.
It's not something that's done periodically. You need to get it within the 7 days after the bite. That is the critical time, and then wash the wound. We have another. I would say what we call immunoglobulin. So these are antibodies, but they're not very common.
All right.
But we give them. We inject them in the wound because they kill the virus.
Okay.
So they're toxic to the virus. So when you look at it, everybody wants the virus to stop where they entered and get out, not move in the body. So that is the principle. We are all trying to stop the virus from moving. So depending on now the bite, if the bite is deep, it means now the virus is buried deeper into the body. So that's why the vaccine becomes very important, because wound washing is not enough. Wound washing can only remove what you see, not what's inside.
All right, and that is why it's important for someone to go to the hospital immediately after washing with again with water. All right, and again, like we said, in the country, we have specific regions that are more endemic, right? To rabies, right? Yes. And Makueni is one of the areas, and Machakos as well. Why? Why this area? Kakamega, I mentioned Kakamega, but Machakos, Makueni. Yes. Why?
So maybe before I go there, I want to emphasize on what my colleague was saying on us doing first aid at home. I remember you're talking about Makueni, so I was doing surveillance there. And some funny stories. Patient would come to the facility and ask them, what did you do first at home when you were bitten by the dog? I would say that I placed charcoal and placed leaves, those myths of placing charcoal. Well, maybe traditionally they used to work, but we are saying we want to emphasize that to make sure you flush the bite wound with a lot of water for about 15 minutes washing with soap. Then still on making sure that you visit the health facility and get the anti-rabies vaccine. Do not delay. And apart from getting the five doses, there are people that up to the wound is healed, so I'm okay. So they do not comply. They come for day 0, day 3, and the wound has dried, so I am fine. By that, you're risking again contracting rabies because you have only gotten 2 doses. So that does not mean that you're not going to. So I was conducting a study in Makueni, and during that study, we were doing a surveillance. So surveillance is when you follow up people that have been bitten and the animals that are causing bite, collecting samples, and it was funny enough that people could start the 5 doses. But they could not comply to completing the doses. Like 30% were completing the doses. So you ask them, why are you not? Why? And they'll tell you that the wound has dried, so I'm fine.
And I'm not showing any signs.
So they're not showing signs, but they do not know that the wound drying does not mean that the virus is not in your body. At that point, the virus could be multiplying and moving up to your brain. So let's not assume that wound drying means that you do not have rabies. And yes, Makueni, Machakos, Siaya has been reporting many cases of rabies. So rabies is endemic in Kenya. We have been having those cases. And looking at Makueni, Machakos, we have so very many dogs. Even if you walk on the street at night, whatever time, you're going to find those dogs. And unfortunately, the responsibility of us owning dogs, we don't confine them. So that means if my dog has rabies, then it is going to roam around biting other dogs. So that transmission cycle continues, and we continue getting many cases of rabies.
Okay, so then vaccination. Dr. Atma talked about vaccination in humans. So Dr. Sam, very quickly. So then how often should we vaccinate our dogs, regardless, pets, security reasons? How often should people vaccinate their dogs?
So we emphasize one thing on responsible dog ownership. Because we have also seen more than 70% of the dogs in the country are actually having owners. So as much as you see a lot of dog loitering out there, they have owners and they have people who actually call themselves owners of those dogs. So we call upon everybody owning a dog to actually make sure they do vaccination. Do not allow your dog, even if it's a puppy, to go beyond 6 months without receiving the first jab. From there, subsequently, have the annual booster for the vaccination. And we are saying this because we have seen if we manage to do 70% coverage of all the dogs in the country for consistently for about 3 years, we will actually be towards the tail end of eradicating this disease, because as we have seen, these are the dogs that are actually responsible for the cases of rabies in this. The question of housing these dogs is also very key, because vaccination alone may not be the magic bullet. We want each and every person to actually take responsibility and not necessarily just wait for the government vaccinations. Although we also want to encourage county governments, because now veterinary services, for instance, is devolved. The budgets which were used nationally to do vaccinations are no longer being operated nationally. So we are calling upon all the governments, especially now that we have given constitutionally the right to health to every Kenyan. We cannot then, a disease that is 100% preventable, we cannot then see Kenyan citizens dying from the same disease. And that's why we are emphasizing, when those budgets are being done, when those requests are being done for control activities for these diseases, they must actually be given the attention they require, so that then we are able to vaccinate and increase the population of vaccinated dogs, because this is the surest path towards eradication and towards us being able to do eradicate by 2030 as envisioned in our strategy.
All right. So the first, just going back to vaccination, so the first one should happen not beyond, like, don't wait until the dose is beyond 6 months. All right. But how many doses do they get, or just one and then that's it?
Just one dose. Then from there, subsequently, annual booster.
Okay.
There's usually a card. Every veterinary surgeon who gives you vaccination, they give you a card, and it has schedule of vaccinations. Or when it is due next, they give you, and they even give a sticker of the blood that they used. That is very important, and they are usually very important documents when we talk about somebody bitten by that particular dog. They produce that card, and then we are able to investigate and find out, could there how much chances do we have that this bite was actually rabid or not? And Athman will tell you this, they are usually more confident when they actually realize the bite was from a vaccinated dog, as opposed to when it is just a stray dog whose vaccination status is unknown. So I think we are also being very responsible if we say that we own dogs and we then go ahead and fail to vaccinate them.
All right. I see that. So the costs. A lot of people would say, so then how much does it cost to have the rabies?
The challenge is that we're in a liberal market. And you go to Aga Khan and you are charged for the same procedure maybe 10 times another dispensary is charging. But gradually the cost of vaccine, including vaccination, could range all the way from 500 shillings to maybe even 2,000 shillings, depending on where you go and depending on the services that you are getting. We're in a liberal market for sure.
But that should be regularized, no? So that everybody gets, the vaccine, and especially in areas where they are more endemic, and most people would not afford to go to high-end, hospitals or veterinary services as well. So I don't know what Dr.
That's why we emphasize.
That.
That's why we emphasize that the government actually prioritizes this and provides it, because for sure rabies is actually a public good.
It is, yes.
And the government actually should take a leading role. And that's why the budget allocation for the rabies control should not be something that is being negotiated so much. So even in those CIDPs, county integrated development plans, I think control of these particular diseases, especially zoonosis, should be prioritized.
All right, make more noise on the same. All right, Dr. Veronica, the role of research, because again, like you said, one of the things that we're dealing with, which again is a bigger challenge, is the fact that we do not have data, accurate data at that point. So then what does the role of research help in terms of preventing, or just hopefully one day we'll completely eradicate cases of rabies? Very quickly, and then we'll finish with Dr. Athman.
Okay, just before I go there, I need to add to what my colleague is saying here on vaccinating dogs and on responsible dog ownership. You see, we are saying we need the vaccine, but if the person having the dog is not responsible enough to confine the dogs at home, then it means we are still going to have rabies.
Sure.
So if I have my dog, I don't take it for vaccination, then it means, and I'm also going to leave it just roaming around, because those dogs we see outside there, and we call them stray dogs, they are not stray dogs.
They have owners.
Someone on them. So when we are doing vaccination, you will see these kids bringing the dogs. And sometimes we go to try and check what is the coverage of vaccination, trying to see the dogs that are roaming. So we spray, we spread them a mark that you can be able to see a dog and confirm that this dog is vaccinated. And funny enough, when you go to these towns, you will see that these dogs that are on the street, they have those marks. So they belong to someone. Someone took them and brought them for vaccination. So this means that this person is not responsible in terms of confining the dog at home. So we are not giving them food, so they have to go scavenging looking for food out there. So if we're responsible enough, we put our dogs at home, we provide food, and we provide for them shelter. So they're not going to go
roam around. And,
So in terms of research, it is
in like
research
20
is,
seconds.
research is also very critical because they're trying to build a case for rabies, to be able to get enough data and try to convince the government that yes, the disease exists. So if there is no data, then it will not, there is no, the disease is not existing. So we have to look for cases of rabies in human and animals and convince that there are these cases existing, then what can we do to control the disease?
All right. Okay. And Dr. Athman, literally 10 seconds before Mike continue hewani. So we talked about responsible dog ownership, how important research is. But even for us as a people, in terms of our health-seeking behavior, what would you say? So that, again, we don't wait until I start barking, and then I suspect that this could be rabies. So very quickly, in like 10 seconds, what would you say?
So definitely that has to improve. That has to improve. A lot of these cases are happening in the rural areas, marginalized areas. So a lot of education has to go there. In schools where children are there, and also among the farmers, the pastoralists, the people. Often we neglect people, like sometimes in villages they are drunkards who come from pubs, maybe late at night, they fall in trenches, they get beaten by dogs. Nobody will ever know that they were beaten. And then 3 months later, they come up with symptoms. So that knowledge has to be there in the entire community. So, and this discussion is important because countries are building towards 2030. We have these zero by 30. There should be no human death from rabies by 2030. And Kenya is actually among those countries that we've signed up for this. So we're building towards World Rabies Day, which is September 28th. So this discussion will continue in many forums so that we talk about rabies, so that everybody gets to know what rabies is and play their role. Everybody has a role to play. We all play our role to ensure that no human dies from such a disease.
I like that. 100% preventable, but could also be 100% fatal. So all of us would need to take responsibility. All right, Dr. Athman Watondo, who's the head of Zoonotic Disease Unit from the Ministry of Health, as well as Dr. Veronica Chuchu, veterinary epidemiologist and infectious diseases, but at the same time, PhD fellow, Washington State University and University of Nairobi, and Dr. Kahariri Sam, Council Chairman, Kenya Veterinary Association, and National Epidemiologist, Directorate of Veterinary Services. Big titles over there. Asanteni sana for coming by today. This is a conversation that sure we need to have on a daily basis so that, again, we improve on awareness. But till next time, have yourselves a lovely day ahead. My name is Winnie Lubembe. I'll see you tomorrow morning, same time, same place, right here on Your World. Stay safe. Goodbye.